Hello my friends, I wanted to take a few minutes to speak to you. I have now launched my online course, the Self-Knowledge Project, which is a self-paced project or online course based on the Ayurvedic medicine or the Ayurvedic principles as a way to find balance in your system. And I really wanted to take a couple of minutes to tell you why I am so convinced of this matter. So I had to encounter the healings, let's say the healing effects of Ayurveda 3 times over the course of 7 years before I actually understood and integrated just how beneficial it is. So if you are not yet convinced, stay calm. Often we need to hear it many times before we are actually convinced, or should I say experience it many times before we are convinced. The very first time was when I did my yoga teacher training, and because it was made in a traditional way with classical yoga, and my teachers are from the Institute of Mumbai, we followed the Ayurvedic principles during the training when it came to everything actually, which is perfectly normal actually for a yogic perspective. Yoga and Ayurveda are sister science, and I would even say go as far as they're not really anything one without the other. And so we were following the routines and the diet rules, let's say, regulations of the Ayurvedic principles. And I noticed while I did my training that not groundbreaking like this, but over the course of the time that I was there, something happened. Like I noticed a change in how I was feeling, and then also how I was looking physically, which was very strange to me, considering 2 facts that were my main issues. So one was the fact that I would always do a lot of physical activity in order to try to control my body weight. And then the second was that I always had a bit of an overeating thing happening for myself my whole life. And that was obviously making this controlling of the body shape even more difficult. And while I did my training, not only did I not have really the option of doing too much of the physical activity, but also we had 3 full-on big meals every day, and we had also fruits and teas and things like that in between. And yet, over the time that I was there, I slimmed down enormously, like to a point where I didn't really notice, because I have a bit of a body dysphoria, like I think many people can have. But people around me, for instance, my friends and families, where I was posting things on Facebook. Back then, actually, there was no Instagram. I think it might have existed, but I was definitely not on it back then. It might have just arrived. I don't know. But it wasn't from there. And people were commenting on how I changed over the weeks. Anyway, I left the ashram, went back to my normal life, and quite quickly things went just back the way they always were. And so I just assumed that that was just, me, like we tend to do. That's just how it is. So that was the first time. The second time was once I moved to Bali. I went away to Australia for about a month to visit some friends and to visit Australia. Never been before. And because I had been quite misdiagnosed when it comes to my Ayurvedic constitution, which is very, very common, especially when we self-diagnose, I bought a very interesting book. That's one of my best books on Ayurveda, and decided to follow the principles. However, what I did not know was that since I thought that my issue was one thing, always linked to the body shape, of course, and how I eat and this and that and digestion and lots of stuff. I completely misapplied the principles, which then had me going even further out of balance. So I was living in Bali, I was down in Australia, I found this book and I started to look into it. It was very interesting, started to apply it. And while I was in Australia, it was quite alright. But then I came back to Bali, and because of the, well, different climate that we have in Bali, it would really, let's say, multiply the symptoms or the effects of this, trying to treat something that was not the right thing to treat. And so what happened was that it got really bad, like really bad. I developed this rash all over my body. I was basically overheating. There was several things. It wasn't just, that I misapplied some principles. It was also the fact that I was working like crazy, having far too much of everything that's heating in a very heating environment, where we came into a rainy season where there was basically no rain, so super hot. Anyway, I wasn't the only one actually developing this rash that season there. So I think it was also some either kind of allergy that was going around, which was weird because it was like several other people due to the heat, I think. Anyway, the only thing that really helped me finally, after several months of being really ill with this, was when I went to see the Ayurvedic doctor here in Bali, up in Ubud, in the clinic. Wonderful person. And who first of all explained to me that I misunderstood, and then gave me my proper constitution, and then gave me what to do, the principles to follow, and the food to eat and what to do. And I think it took me about a month, because it takes some time obviously to come back after you've been just that much out of balance. And all of a sudden it was all gone. I was all back to normal. And then once again I was experiencing this strange well-being in my body that I had experienced after the ashram, or in the ashram. And I once again did not understand that this was obviously a sign. So after a while, going back to normal and starting doing things like I've always done, I just get back to the type of body that I usually have, the type of overheating maybe that I would usually have, but that just seemed like, it's just the way I am. Now, third time that Ayurveda saved me, I had been traveling again. So as very often, it's, when you travel as well, you get out of balance quite naturally, and because also your vata gets out of balance, and vata is the one that leads. So vata is the dosha, or the type of constitution that is enhanced, or let's say represented even by movement. So travel, movement. And I had been in India for a month, in Mysore, practicing full-on Ashtanga primary every day for 30 days. Sundays was rest day. I got back and I was completely out of balance again. Went to see the Ayurvedic doctor again. Once again, he said, do this, do that, take this, take that. And it took me about a month following the treatments, and then back to normal. And I think it was really from this time, the third time, so 7-8 years later, that I probably decided it is time for me to actually live by the Ayurvedic rules on a daily basis. And so little by little I started to implement this, and then managed to actually engage instead, or commit to a training, so that I would actually become an Ayurvedic practitioner. Because I find that when you're that passionate about something, if you can then use that as a way to help other people, well, that's how you create success in your life. So I guess that's what's really I wanted to share with you today.